Okay guys, I wanted to make a quick update video. Now, I want to wish everyone a really Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and a Happy Holidays. So, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about today all the court cases against Donald Trump and how they've all fallen apart. Every single one of them has completely collapsed under their own weight. And it's a very, very Merry Christmas right now. So, I'm just going to go over all the court cases that are against Trump right now. And there's several of them. First, we're going to start with Stormy Daniels. Now, if you don't remember what happened with the Stormy Daniels case, Trump's lawyer at the time was the one who put money towards paying off Stormy Daniels with a contract saying that you're not allowed to talk about this. Donald Trump had an extramarital affair in which he slept with Stormy Daniels, who is a porn star. Okay? Now, Stormy Daniels then violated that contract after failing to blackmail Donald Trump. She was found liable of breaking a contract and ended up having to pay Donald Trump lots and lots of money. All the money that he paid her to keep her quiet. Now, the lawyer, I think his name was Avenatti. No, I don't think that's right. I think that was Stormy Daniels' lawyer. I can't remember the name of the two lawyers that were involved, but Stormy Daniels' lawyer has been accused of some kind of fraud, and he was convicted of it. Meanwhile, Trump's lawyer was found to lie to Congress, and therefore is an admitted liar who was paid by Trump for services rendered. But Trump didn't do anything wrong, and Stormy Daniels lost that case because she violated her contract. And in fact, if it was in New York City, she would have been also arrested for trying to blackmail Donald Trump. Now, she hasn't actually paid that money, but that case has completely fallen apart. Then there's the Eugene Carroll case. If you don't recall, Eugene Carroll accused Donald Trump of having sex with her without her permission. You can't actually use the word for that on YouTube, which is stupid. But she claimed that Donald Trump had sex with her in the biggest mall in the country, the busiest mall in the country, in the changing rooms that are right next to the cash registers, and that this happened in an unknown year, and she has no evidence, no witnesses, no one who can collaborate. I can't say that word, so sorry for my mispronunciation of it. And absolutely no evidence whatsoever. She did claim to have the dress that she wore that night and that she never wore that dress again. Now, both the prosecution and the defense both came out and asked the judge to admit it into evidence and have it gene tested to see if Donald Trump's DNA was on it, and the judge refused. The judge also kept the identity of the jurors secret, which is not that big of a deal. They thought that Donald Trump would somehow intimidate them in some way or another. But the case completely fell apart for one very specific reason. While Trump was found liable for it, he wasn't found liable for the actual sex without permission part. He was found liable for sexual assault, which is something Eugene Carroll didn't even allege. That wasn't even part of the case. It had nothing to do with it, in fact. Sexual assault and, the actual R charges are completely different. Moreover, again, this is in biased New York, and it's going to get appealed and it's probably going to be overturned because it doesn't make any sense. There's no evidence of it. That law, by the way, that was put into place was put into place specifically to allow Donald Trump to be charged with this. And in fact, many of Joe Biden's political opponents, including Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, have been charged under this law. Eric Adams was charged on the very last day that you were allowed to push these allegations. Trump can't be thrown in jail due to this, but what the law said is that for 1 year, you could allege that someone had touched you inappropriately and press charges for something where the statute of limitations had already expired. And these were used to attack a lot of Biden's political enemies, including the mayor who went against Joe Biden by claiming that Joe Biden is at fault for the border crisis. So you can tell that there is a political aspect of this that has nothing to do with the actual allegations. That is going to be overturned very specifically because, again, they found him liable for something that wasn't even, that Eugene Carroll didn't even accuse him of. Then the Alvin Bragg case has also completely fallen apart. That one was the weakest of all of them, specifically because this is in regards to the Stormy Daniels payments. According to them, Donald Trump paid off his lawyer for Stormy Daniels in a way that misused campaign funds. However, that's not what the charge actually is. The charge is using campaign funds to cover up a federal crime. A federal crime that Trump has never been even indicted for, let alone convicted of. In fact, the DOJ knew about this and refused to indict Trump for it. That means that Alvin Bragg is saying that Donald Trump covered up a crime that never happened. You can see why that's a problem. That case has completely fallen apart before it's even started. Then you have the Florida documents case. Not only did Joe Biden have classified documents from his Senate years, which he wasn't allowed to do, not only did President Bill Clinton have documents from his presidential years, not only did Mike Pence have documents from his vice president years. The fact of the matter is the Presidential Records Act specifically says that any documents that the president leaves office with are automatically assumed to be declassified and belong as personal property to the former president. The president has no official way to declassify these documents. But what it actually, they say that's not true, except for the fact that Judicial Watch, God, I can't say Judicial Watch right now either. Screw me, huh? But they sued Bill Clinton for his what's called the sock drawer tapes. Now, if you aren't aware, Bill Clinton had an interview with a reporter about his dealings with Iran, amongst other topics of his presidency. The reporter kept some of the tapes, and so did Bill Clinton. Judicial Watch specifically said that those tapes should be taken away from Bill Clinton and put into the National Archives, which the judge of that case ruled Bill Clinton not liable for it and said that he is allowed to keep those because they are considered personal property because he left the White House with them. Meaning that there is already a precedence here that says that Bill Clinton or any president can keep any documents he wants. Now, there was an allegation that Donald Trump kept documents in relation to... Hold on. Sorry about that. Someone just came home and I had to let that man real quick. Okay, so what was I talking about? The Florida documents case, right? So the judge found that any documents taken out of the White House by the president are automatically considered declassified, and that Bill Clinton was allowed to keep those tapes without them being put into the National Archives. Because of that ruling, Judicial Watch came along and said that that's also true for Donald Trump. Now, they were specifically talking about the Iran case, right? One of Trump's generals specifically wanted Donald Trump to launch an attack against Iran. And Donald Trump said in a recording that he refused that. Again, sorry. Specifically said that that one of his generals was going to attack Iran and Donald Trump had refused him. And he said that there were documents that he didn't declassify about this event. Now, what the recording seems to indicate is that Donald Trump held up a newspaper or something along the lines and said, this case right here with Iran, I stopped us from going to war with Iran, which would have started World War III. And people were like, okay, well, let's see if he has any documents in relation to that. And he didn't. Not only that, they took away 13,000 documents from the Mar-a-Lago, but only like 150 of them were actually classified or were classified materials with actual classified headings. So all the documents you saw in the bathroom weren't actually any of the classified documents. All the classified documents were in his office or in a secure closet nearby. If you don't know what the Mar-a-Lago is, it's a hotel and it's a home, and it's also the not the courthouse, the country house, the country club of Trump's golf course. However, that place has hundreds upon hundreds of private security and Secret Service guarding it. No one could ever, in any way get anywhere close to where those documents were. Not even the 13,000 documents that weren't classified or previously classified material. Those documents were completely secure. Not only that, but Trump kept in contact with the National Archives about this and was actually taking steps to make sure that those documents were properly secured so that no one could ever get at them. But they raided him anyways. Not only are there a lot of other people who kept documents from the White House and from the Senate who weren't supposed to, Donald Trump was working with the National Archives, and they said he wasn't. But it doesn't matter, because that case has been pushed back after the 2024 election. And in fact, that is true for most of these cases. Trump is not even going to go to court for these documents because they hit him with literally a million documents that his lawyers have to go through in order to actually run this case. Now you have the New York fraud case. This is also one of the weakest cases because the actual prosecutor came out and said that she and the judge came together before the case even started and already determined that Trump was guilty. Again, they decided before any evidence was even shown that Trump was guilty. And now they're saying, oh well, now it's time to actually determine how much money Trump owes. Except for the fact that you remember that lawyer from the Stormy Daniels case that was proven to have lied to Congress? He was the star witness of the prosecution, and he specifically testified in that case that Trump did not tell him to overestimate the value of Trump's properties. He did that on his own, which means that Trump did not overestimate his property value. And in fact, multiple people from the bank itself, including the CEO, said that he personally talked to Trump and he personally lowered the estimate Trump gave him downwards in order to and approved the loans. He knew how much Trump was actually worth and devalued the estimate that Trump gave him and that Trump paid back those loans on time with interest fully. This case has absolutely no victims. No one was defrauded. Everyone who was involved said that Trump's deals helped everyone involved make money. Not only that, they said the Mar-a-Lago was only worth $15 million. Mind you, local houses nearby that are on a quarter acre or maybe as much as an acre are worth $20 to $25 million. The Mar-a-Lago is 100 times bigger, has an entire golf course, is a private business with a golf course, a golf club, and a hotel, and they said it was only worth $15 million. That hotel and golf course probably makes more than $15 million in a year. People underestimate the value of the actual land and property itself, specifically because, those are my notes. I need those. Okay, anyways. Specifically because they just need to show that this property is worth this much, and therefore, this is how much money we're going to give you. But they very purposely underestimate it in order to show that, hey, we're not going to give you just $100 million if you put this property up for as collateral. Trump, that Mar-a-Lago is probably worth $200 million. And it's not even involved in New York. Specifically, the New York fraud case is specifically to take all Trump's properties in New York City, which is broke, by the way, because of the migrant crisis going on, and to keep him from actually operating out of New York, which will destroy New York's economy. Because if they can take Trump's property in a fraud case in which there is no fraud victims, then no company is going to want to work in New York. Why would they want to when New York City can just steal your assets at any time and claim you're guilty and throw you in jail, and not only in order to pay off their debt? Then you have the Georgia case. Now, if you're not aware, in the Georgia case, it's specifically the allegations by Fani Willis, who ran on the idea of persecuting and throwing Trump in jail before she even had any evidence that he needed to be thrown in jail, which there is none, by the way. The case very specifically is to say that Trump worked with other people in a conspiracy to overthrow Georgia's elections. And they charged like 20 people. They charged a lot of people with what it called RICO charges. RICO charges are a charge in which it is alleged that multiple people worked together in order to enact some kind of conspiracy. This is something that Giuliani used to go after the mob in New York City. Now, for RICO, you actually have to prove that people were working together to make this fraud happen. Now, Fani Willis did get many people to plead guilty to some of her charges. The problem is that for all the people that pled guilty, none of them pled guilty to RICO charges. They pled guilty to other charges that indicate that they worked alone. In fact, the defendants had come out and said that yes, they could try to use them as witnesses against Trump, except it wouldn't work. It wouldn't help Fani Willis's case because, well, they already, both the state who gave the plea deal and the defendants who took the plea deal both admitted together at the same exact time that they didn't work with Trump. That means with every one of these cases, that shows that there are less and less people that could possibly be involved in this conspiracy. And if they can't get anyone to plead guilty to the RICO charges, that would mean that no one worked with Donald Trump in a conspiracy. It's so dumb that this is even an allegation. They have specifically have less and less people in order to charge with RICO because all these people are admitting they committed a crime, while also both the state and the witnesses or the defendants saying, no, they did not work with Donald Trump. That case is falling apart very quickly. And in fact, the case took another huge hit about a month ago. One of the challenges against the election was specifically that about 100,000 ballots or so were determined to not be valid or were accused of not being valid. Well, Donald Trump and the people who were pushing that case were ruled against. However, the judge said that the records, the ballots, must be retained until the appeal process went through. And then all of the lawyers for Fulton County who were working on that case all quit about a month ago because those ballots that were court ordered to be maintained were then destroyed against court orders. And those were supposed to be evidence that the Georgia election was stolen, which is what this whole case is about, is to say that Donald Trump stole the election. But Fulton County, the ones charging Donald Trump, just destroyed the ballots that were in question in the first place against court orders. Whoops. So Fulton County just lost all their lawyers who quit in shame or in order to set up their own defenses in case they get charged. So that fell apart. Then you have the Colorado ballot case. That case fell apart immediately because the Supreme Court ruled 4-3 in favor of removing Donald Trump from the ballot. The 4 justices were from Ivy League schools, while the 3 justices that voted against it were from a community college. The reason that case fell apart immediately is because the Colorado Supreme Court said that we want to remove Trump from the ballot, but he will not be removed from the ballot until the Supreme Court rules on our ruling. So they did absolutely nothing. They basically just made an opinion that Donald Trump should be removed from the ballot. But they only said he should be removed from the primary ballot, not from the general election. And Trump doesn't need Colorado at all to win enough delegates to become the primary nominee for the general election. So not only did the Supreme Court not do anything, there were multiple other states, at least 3 others, that ruled against removing Donald Trump from the ballot. And then the vice, or the, forget what it is, the vice governor, the second governor, I forget what the actual term for it is, but it's the assistant governor to Gavin Newsom came out and said that we should remove Trump from the California primaries too, to which Gavin Newsom immediately came out and said, no, we're not doing that. No, that's not happening. California will not remove Trump from the ballot. It is not going to happen. And then Texas and Florida came out and said, well, if they're going to remove Trump from the ballot, then maybe we should remove Biden from the ballot, because he's also accused of things that haven't been proven yet. But since he's accused, since Trump was removed from merely being accused, by the way, he was accused of insurrection, something that Trump hasn't even been charged with in any jurisdiction. Any of them. None of them have charged Trump with insurrection. And the Supreme Court of Colorado said that they were going to potentially remove Trump from the primary ballot because he committed insurrection, which again, he's not even convicted. So Florida and Texas came out and said, well, okay, if you don't even need an indictment to remove someone from the ballot, then we might as well just remove Biden. Which, by the way, Florida's Democrat Party just came out and said that only Biden is going to be on the primary ballot in Florida. Which means that if Biden was removed from the ballot in Florida, there would be literally 0 candidates for the Democrat Party on Florida's primary ballot. So that case has fallen apart immediately. Jack Smith came out and tried to have the Supreme Court expedite the cases against Trump, which failed. The Supreme Court told him to kick rocks. Finally, the last case against Donald Trump is the D.C. insurrection case, which again has nothing to do with insurrection. It very specifically says that Trump somehow encouraged people to attack the Capitol building. And they're not saying it was an insurrection, but basically saying that he called for violence. Unfortunately for them, that would not be enough to remove Trump from any ballot whatsoever. And because it's not an insurrection case. But also the 14th Amendment, which was cited in the Colorado ballot case, does not actually apply to the president. It applies to the House of Representatives, the Senate, the electors of a presidential election, which means any people who were chosen to vote for the president in the Electoral College, and any state house or senate, or any state executive office. Any office in the government, including the officers, the military officers. But the president isn't an officer in any sense of the word. He's an elected official of the executive branch of the military. Boy, there goes my notes again. Well, I'm done with them anyways. Sorry, another interruption. Someone else came home. Anyways, for the last case, the D.C. insurrection case, which doesn't actually accuse Trump of insurrection, and that the 14th Amendment doesn't actually cover insurrection by the President of the United States, very specifically, very intentionally, by the way. The President of the United States is not considered an officer in the military, is not considered an officer, sorry for all the British people out there, is not considered an officer in the executive branch, and specifically refers to non-elected positions. He is not a member of the Congress. He is not a member of a state executive branch. He is not a member of the Electoral College. He is none of those things. So the 14th Amendment wouldn't apply to Trump even if he was indicted for insurrection, which he isn't. All of these cases have completely fallen apart. Even the ones that Trump had been found liable of is going to be overturned in time. Which is why this is a very Merry Christmas. Because if you actually look at the polls, Trump's numbers have only gone up since he's been indicted for all these things. In fact, as of Christmas, Trump is up by more than 2 points in the national polling, which is higher than he's ever been before. It was higher than he's ever been in the aggregate in 2016, which he won. It was higher than what Trump had in 2020, which he lost. But Biden had to be up by he was up by like 8 points No, I think he was up by 10 points. No, it was 8 because it was 42% for Trump. It was like 42% for Trump and 50% for Biden. And how it actually turned out was Biden was up by 4 points in the actual election, but he only won in the swing states by like 100,000 votes or so. Some states would have been turned to Trump if Trump had even gotten like 10,000 more votes. Biden is now losing to Trump in those polls, in those aggregates, meaning that Trump is about to win in a landslide if those numbers keep up. So it's a very, very Merry Christmas. Not only are all the cases against Trump BS, and they're all being lost by the prosecutions, Trump is now almost guaranteed the win. But we need to keep it up. We need to make sure that people understand that Trump is innocent of everything he's been accused of, that he was right about the border, that he was right about NATO not paying their fair share, which I just had an argument with a bunch of people on Twitter who are very, very dumb. The United States is only paying 1/3% of our GDP to pay for Ukraine. So a lot of people were saying to me that Europe has been paying a higher share of money in terms of percentage GDP in general, except they don't take into account NATO. The United States pays 3.47% of its GDP towards NATO, which is going to replace all the equipment that NATO gave to Ukraine, which means that the United States is paying 3.8% of its GDP towards NATO. And 20 countries in NATO haven't been paying their promised 2% share per the treaty towards NATO. If you include Ukraine funding, then only 13 countries are not paying their fair 2% share towards the defense of Europe. So not only is Trump right about everything, including NATO, Trump is right that all these cases are BS, and Trump will be found innocent, or these cases will not go to court until after the 2024 election, where Trump, at this point, is definitely going to win. So get out there, tell everybody you know that all the charges against Trump are BS, that Trump is right about everything, that they need to go out and vote for Trump, and not only that, they need to go out and ballot harvest if it's legal in your state. Let's get Trump back in office, guys. He deserves it. He was right about everything, and he's going to make America great again. Okay? Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. Peace out, man.